Welcome to the Forest and Climate Change podcast. I'm Ruth Martín, Ph.D. in forestry engineering with a specialization in forest genetics. I'll be your host for the second topic in this series, carbon sequestration. In our previous episode, we discussed global change and greenhouse gases. Today, we'll focus specifically on carbon dioxide, and more importantly, on the natural friends or allies that help us fight the effects of climate change. Can you guess who they might be? Among all the greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, CO2, has increased the fastest in atmospheric concentration and is the main driver of global temperature rise. There are both natural systems, such as oceans, vegetation and soils, and artificial systems, including certain emerging technologies, that can absorb more CO2 from the atmosphere than they emit. These are known as carbon sinks, and they play a crucial role in mitigating, that is, reducing the impacts of climate change. Natural carbon sinks temporarily store or sequester carbon, although this storage is not always permanent. For instance, a forest can release stored CO2 back into the atmosphere if it burns. Coastal and oceanic sinks absorb roughly 17% of total emissions, while terrestrial sinks, like vegetation and soils, account for about 24%. This means that over half of global greenhouse gas emissions remain in the atmosphere. Natural sinks can't do it all. They have a limit. That's why reducing our emissions is absolutely essential. Different forest ecosystems, with their trees, shrubs, animals, fungi, and diverse soil types, have varying capacities to sequester carbon. Through photosynthesis, plants absorb CO2 from the air and, by a series of chemical reactions, store the carbon in their tissues as they grow. Additionally, some of this carbon is transferred into the soil through the root systems and natural regeneration processes. Healthy soils, those that are fertile, uncontaminated, and undisturbed, are the second largest carbon sink after the oceans. Remarkably, they can store carbon for thousands of years. In summary, carbon sinks are systems that can absorb more CO2 than they emit. But to function effectively, they must be properly maintained. If they degrade, they can turn into carbon sources, reversing the role and releasing CO2 instead of storing it. That's why protecting and conserving oceans, forests, and soils in good conditions is vital in the fight against climate change. That's all for today's topic. Thank you for listening to the Forest and Climate Change podcast.